want the interpretation provided by the organizers. And this being said, let me officially open the conference. Doamnelor și domnilor,
Ladies and gentlemen, the group of the Progressive Alliance of Socialists and Democrats in the European Parliament, today upon the initiative of Victor Negrescu and the Social Democratic family, we organize a conference on the future of the European budget and the European Recovery Plan. We have with us different key persons, both at European level and national level. They are involved in the management of European budgets. We will have, besides the intervention of Mr. Negrescu, a message of the European Commissioner on Budgets, Mr. Johannes Hahn, then a message from Mrs. Margarida Marques, a member of the European Parliament, a rapporteur on the multi-annual finance, and then Mr. Danica, head of the Romanian S&D delegation, Radu Magdin, a coordinator of a very important study. We are going to follow it during this event. Mrs. Roxana Mînzatu, a deputy, former Minister of the European Funds, and Mr. Adrian Căciu. I am Dan Cărbunaru, Calea Europeană.ro. I'm going to mediate this interesting, dynamic, and relevant format for the people who are going to hopefully follow us. After this brief introduction, I will go now to the organizer of the event, Mr. Victor Negrescu. Hello, Mr. Negrescu. Just some introductory words, please. Hello, everybody. I want to thank Calea Europeană for helping us organize this very useful and important conference at a time when there are ample discussions at European and national levels about the future European budget and the European Recovery Plan. We have today different guests with expertise in the field, colleagues from the European Parliament. We have specialists in European budget, Mrs. Marques. We have economic experts on European funds. So people we are trying to generate a dialogue with, a project, so that such European resources are useful both for Europe and Romania. This conference opens the public consultation process, which should be organized at national level to define how the European money will be used nationally. In this logic, I will start by reminding that the initiative on the European Recovery Plan is an initiative which was started by our political family. The Spanish Prime Minister asked the countries to create a vast public investment plan, just like the Marshall Plan. So he advanced this idea initially with wider funds, and then after negotiations, we reached the financial volumes we are discussing today. Obviously, these are necessary given the pandemic which struck Europe. Yesterday, the European Commission presented a report which shows that Romania will, at the end of this year, will have a deficit of 10.3% of the GDP, much higher than initially announced by the authorities, a difference, a 2 billion difference compared to initial figures. And moreover, the Commission forecasts an economic decrease, which unfortunately places Romania among the top countries affected by the pandemic. So we have European resources, almost 80 billion euro available from the European budget and European Recovery Plan. We are going to discuss today how we can use such resources. We have a very interesting study on this, and we are going to present all these details and the funding lines and everything we need to do for this. And we are going to speak today about the directions which can be implemented to use the European money. We are going to speak about grants, loans, and financial allocations by category, and about what other European countries received, because we are talking about a wider context and there are many things to discuss. So I want to thank those who answered our invitation. I'm sure we are going to have a very interesting debate and interventions from our colleagues. And then I will later on have a wider or broader intervention, because when we speak about European budgets, we need to be very precise. We can't sell citizens illusions. We need to tell things as they are very clearly, precisely, accurately, and be very pragmatic with our use of European money and see when and how it will happen, because as you could see, there are many blockages, especially in the negotiations for the future European budget. I will end here. I want to thank Cala European and the S&D Group, my colleague Dan Nica for his support, and Mrs. Marquez for honoring us again with her presence and basically submitting the message for this important topic. Thank you, and I'll be back. Thank you very much, Mr. Negrescu. I want to thank those who are already connected online, watching us on Facebook Live. I would like to add something before moving on. This is my personal opinion. I think that Mr. Negrescu rejoining the European Parliament after giving up his mandate to prepare the most important moment for Romania after the EU accession, the preparation of the presidency of the Council of Europe. I think this is very important, both for the European Parliament, for the Social Democratic Group in the European Parliament, and your initiative today to debate the 80 billion euro Romania should use in the forthcoming years is evidence of this need to communicate. And obviously, I salute the presence with us of all the distinguished guests. Before inviting Mrs. Margarida Marques, a member of the European Parliament and rapporteur, I would like to follow the message submitted in this international conference by the European Commissioner for Budgets, Mr. Johannes Hahn.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the invitation to participate at today's conference on the Multi-Annual Financial Framework and on the Recovery Fund. Your timing is impressive and unfortunate at the same time. Impressive because you managed to schedule this event just after we have managed the big breakthrough on the next 7-year EU budget. Unfortunate because it overlaps with the conciliation on the annual budget, which is why I can only address you via this video message. On the 10th of November, the European Parliament, Council and Commission negotiating teams reached an unprecedented agreement on the MFF and Next Generation EU and own resources. We made history. As EPP Vice President, I would like to thank S&T representatives for their very constructive role in the negotiations, in particular Margarida and Ida. We started this journey in 2018 with the Commission's original proposal for a new multi-annual financial framework. The Council considered it a bit too ambitious. The European Parliament thought it was not ambitious enough. Everybody assumed that Brexit would certainly be our biggest challenge in the next EU budget. How times have changed. Nobody could have imagined that the COVID-19 pandemic would have sadly taken and threatened the lives of our citizens, put a strain on our economies, businesses and internal market. This new context has been very present in our MFF negotiations. It has shaped a historic deal far beyond the sheer volume. Once adopted, the new long-term budget and Next Generation EU will represent the largest package ever financed by the Union budget, with a total of 1.8 trillion euro and, may I say, in 2018 prices. With this deal, we are demonstrating that Europe is up to the challenge, that European institutions can live up to their responsibilities in the face of this unparalleled crisis. We will help member states, business, regions and citizens face the pandemic and rebuild a post-COVID-19 Europe, a new Europe which will be greener, more digital, more resilient and better fit for the current and forthcoming challenges. We have managed to reach a good deal for our institutions and, most importantly, for our citizens. The Parliament negotiated reinforcements of 50 billion for specific programs. This includes flagship programs of our union, such as Horizon Europe, InvestEU, Erasmus+. Moreover, 30% of the EU funds will be spent to fight climate change, the highest share ever, and a key priority of this Parliament. The agreement boosts the modernization of our policies. Considerable funding will be allocated to research and innovation, fair climate and digital transitions via the Just Transition Fund and the digital program, preparedness, recovery and resilience via the Recovery and Resilience Facility, RescEU and the new mentioned EU for Health program. I salute the clear roadmap towards new own resources to repay the borrowing for Next Generation EU. To put this into context, a reform of the own resources wasn't undertaken since the 80s. There's currently a lot of focus on another collective achievement, our agreement on a rule of law mechanism giving us more power to protect Union's taxpayers' money. I stand fully behind the need for us to be able to trace Union funds. This is not about ideology. It's about helping our citizens out of this barely imaginable economic crisis. The last few days have made even more clear that we are not quite there yet. We still have essential steps to make for the MFF and Next Generation EU to be in place as of January 2021, such as agreeing the annual budget and completing the sectoral instruments. Time is extremely short, and the corona pandemic remains extremely challenging. Our citizens and businesses need the EU budget support. We are on the final sprint. Thank you very much and enjoy today's conference.
Da, acesta a fost mesajul adresat de către Johannes Hahn.
This was the message of Mr. Hahn, a very important character in this configuration of European money and how it will be spent. He, in the beginning, wanted to thank the Euro Deputy Victor Negrescu, the one who is organizing this conference, and showed a useful lesson for countries, especially like Romania, when we have joint interests. Political families work together. Mr. Hahn was a European commissioner in the Juncker Commission, and he is a president of PPE, and he wanted to mention this. S&D and PPE are two of the cores of the European construct from the very beginning.
Vom merge acum mai departe, and now I will switch to English. Mrs. Margarida Marques, member of the Parliament and the rapporteur of the S&D Group for the MFF. Mrs. Marques, you are a key person in the European Parliament, not only in S&D Group, and you were mentioned by the Commissioner earlier in his message. There are many challenges, some of them due to COVID-19, some others due to the short time until we should start spending the money for MFF and recovery funds. So there are only a few challenges that we know, and we are looking forward to listen to your opinion on this complicated configuration of the European funds.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I start by thanking Vitor for this initiative and inviting me today. And also, I'd like to say that I worked during these times very close with Nika. We made a great job, and I can say that Nika was always a very good demander, demanding to increase the Horizon envelope, the research program envelope, and you did it. So it was a pleasure also to work with Nika. I need to say also that the Parliament, during these negotiations, we did our best. Because for the first time, we could increase the agreement, the financial agreement reached by European leaders last July. It's the first time it was why the Commissioner spoke on an historical agreement. That's right. Because I need to clarify why I needed to do it. Because for the European answer to the crisis, European leaders decided, after that European Parliament had asked for, they decided to create an European answer to the crisis, different that we had after the crisis 2007-2008. So we have a different answer. We have an European answer with two pillars. The first pillar, the traditional MFF, multi-annual financial framework. It means the budget 2021-2027, and the second pillar, the recovery fund. And this is important to understand because it's two different pillars. The first one is the traditional, and it will remain after 2027. The second one, it means the recovery fund is the immediately answer to the crisis. It means it's only one time, it's the creation of a fund. The Commission will go to markets on behalf of the European Union. It's not Romania, it's not Portugal that will go to markets, to financial markets. As you had after 2007-2008, when Portugal was paying 7% of interest rates, Germany paid 0 or less than 0. So we were in different conditions. It was why this solidarity, this mutualization of the debt, of the responsibilities was needed. And leaders agreed on it, on an European answer, and citizens are waiting for this answer. And with this answer, the European leaders maintain the national envelopes on cohesion, on agriculture. They maintain the envelopes for the recovery fund, the national envelopes. They didn't ask more money to countries. So the question is, who paid the bill? And who paid the bill was the European programs. Research program, Erasmus, Creative Europe, investment, another one, rights and values, for example, key programs for European Union, because in the end of the day, it's the European programs that produce, that generate European added value. So it's why the first priority of the Parliament was to increase the financial envelopes for the programs. It was difficult, yes. 11 trialogues, 11 meetings, huge discussions, very difficult, but in the end of the day, we win. And the Parliament, for the first time, we could increase the budget of the European Union and affect the money to the programs. The new money is not falling from the sky, but is coming from the fines. Because when companies, when firms don't respect the European rules on competitivity, they pay a fine. And we convinced the Commission and the Council to mobilize this money to do the top-up of the European programs. Mm-hmm. And we could have more 11 billions fresh money and 16 billions, 11 plus 5, 16 billions for flexibility and for mobilizing from other mechanisms to the top-up of the programs. It's why we could increase 4 billions for Horizon Europe. Thank you, Mika. You're demanding always. Invest EU, 1 billion. Erasmus program, 2.2 billion. EU for health, it's the tripling. It means it was very important for us because the reduction of the envelope on a health program, we couldn't understand it. And we decided to tripling this program, because there are the problem of vaccines, but there are also, we need to increase research, and we need to create a stockpiles in European Union, because member states are not in conditions to do it, and we need to have an European stockpiles. And also Creative Europe. Creative Europe, why? Because we know that culture sector is very, very, there are a very strong impact in the culture sector, because it's prison. They can't do spectacles, they can't concert, theater, we can't. So this program needs to be increased, this financial envelope. But also the program rights and values, because we are more vocals, asking for rule of law, but we know that some countries took measures that are not so democratic, with the justification, the argument that is for to answer to the crisis. Yes, I know, and we know that we need to have concrete and special measures for it, but always we need to respect democracy and the rule of law. It's why it was so important to do the top up of this program. But also the border management fund and the two funds that can help the European Union to have more action in the future. So this is our first achievement, the top up of the programs with the fresh money. The second achievement is on own research, as the Commissioner already spoke on. Because we don't want each 7 years to discuss if a member state will contribute with 1%, 0.9, 0.14 of the GNI for the European Union budget. We need to discuss the political ambition, and not each member states, oh, I pay 1%, so I'm a net contributor. No, because the member states that contribute more, they are also the most beneficiaries. It means the net contributors are the net beneficiaries of the internal market. And helpfully, the Commission published last December a table with figures showing that the net contributors are the net beneficiaries. And it's why own research, new own research is important. It's important to change, to modify the structure of the financing source for the European Union. But also, we know that we will create this fund. But members, first of all, we need to pay guarantees, and also we need to pay the fund to the repayment from the member states after 2027. It's why the new own research are needed, at least to pay the capitals and the interests of this fund. And this is very important. And there are also a condition that you could write in the regulation, is if the internal market today, the interest rates are not so big, it's around 0. But financial markets can change in the future. And if the interests will increase a lot, more than it is in the budget, another solution must be found. One thing is clear, that it can't be done by cohesion or agriculture policy. We protected cohesion and agriculture policy in the future, and it's written noir sur blanc that it can't be done in the future. So, third point is on the role of the European Parliament, because European Parliament is the budgetary authority, that's right, but only for the expenditure side, not on the revenue side. It was why it was important to valorize the role of the European Parliament, because the creation of this fund, it's 750 billions, and we could increase the transparency and democratic accountability. Finally, we introduced some horizontal issues because we adopted concrete targets on environment, on biodiversity, and it's not enough have targets for 2027. We need to have a progress, and we need to have a methodology, a mechanism to monitor this progress. And we did it for environment, for climate, for biodiversity, and also on gender balance. It's not written gender balance, it's woman-man balance, because one member state rejected the word gender. But okay, the essential is there and we could accept. Finally, state of play. On 16th of November, the German presidency of the Council took 3 points to COREPER meeting. First one, a general regime of conditionality for the protection of the European budget. It means the rule of law decision, MFF regulation, and own reserves decision. The third one is important because Council must launch the ratification procedure by national parliaments. We couldn't understand that the creation of this fund with this dimension was done without a role of the national parliaments. And Hungary and Poland decided to veto this own research decision and the MFF regulation because rule of law was adopted because it's by majority, was adopted with the vote against from Holland and Poland, but was adopted majority, but Hungary and Poland decided to veto MFF regulation and own reserves decision. For our point of view, is unacceptable. Yesterday, the Conference of Presidents of the Parliament asked the Council to deblock this agreement as soon as possible, immediately, and we clarified that our position remains exactly the same. It means we will not renegotiate the agreements. The agreements are done. Now it's up to the Council to take position. And the position of the Council was clear. No further concession will be made on our side. This was clear. So the point is, citizens understood in July that they could be protected by European Union. And an European answer was created, was built against the impact of the pandemic, protecting health, people, families.
Oh, I'm sorry, you have to unmute your mic.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
It's okay now. So citizens understood that they will have an European answer, and the European Union was protecting them. And they are waiting for this European answer. Citizens, families, enterprises, states, because when we look to the fiscal situation of the member states, it's difficult. So they need money. They need this fund to respond to the crisis. It's why we need to act, and we can't accept that Hungary and Poland can block European Union. Today there are an European Council with leaders. I imagine they will discuss, and we need to find either Poland and Hungary move, or if not, we need to find a legal base to create an answer. I don't know, outside the European budget, we never know, but we need to find a legal framework to create and to ensure that the European answer will be done. Thank you, and sorry to be so long.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Marques. I think it's not too long. It's very important for the citizens that were voting for you last year so heavily. I think that the strongest democratic institution in representing people interest in the European Union in Brussels, in Strasbourg, is the European Parliament. It was a historical vote that you and all your colleagues from the European Parliament received as a mandatory from the European citizens. So their confidence that your role should be more and more active must be satisfied. And I think it's never enough to explain what is happening behind the bureaucracy and negotiations, as we have concrete results to achieve. You mentioned the historical negotiation that you managed to do, the Parliament with the member states, to increase the budget and not to be forced, as usually, unfortunately, until now, to vote the final figures proposed by the member states. So you mentioned also saving important roles of the European Union in our lives, like EU for Health, research, so many other Erasmus. Without money, these plans, these European plans, are useless, and you have to deliver. All the time we hear that the politicians and the European institutions should deliver results to the citizens. And you also mentioned that this money are for promoting European values. Poland and Hungary somehow blocked this result. How worried are you regarding this? And when do you think that we will finally have closed this part of preparing the European money to come to the member states?
I like very much to have an answer to you. And if I could say today, it was the best answer, but it's not the case. I'm very worried. It's a very difficult situation, because in the end of the day, the rule of law mechanism adopted was only linked to the budget, to corruption, to bad use of the European money. It's not as strong. In the end of the day, it's not so strong that the European Parliament and myself, I'd like to have. It's good. It's a first step, but it's not the end of the line. We need to give more steps on the protection of the rule of law. This step is only on protect the European budget. And it's why I can't understand, because it's a mechanism for all the 27. And I can't understand why 25 member states say, yes, we are open. It's also our ambition to have it. And there are 2 member states saying no. But I read the press today, this morning, and I understood that the Hungarian people, Polish people, social partners in Hungary, in Poland, they asked to the prime ministers to move and to have a more collaborative answer. Because in the end of the day, Hungary will receive by cohesion 20 billion, Poland 66.4, and from the Recovery and Resilience Facility, Hungary will receive 6 and Poland 23 billion. So I think that this is important for Hungarian people and Polish people. What we can see is 2 prime ministers that who speak on behalf of these people, of the Hungarian citizens and Polish citizens, and in the end of the day, they don't protect the interests of Hungarian and the Polish people, because they need to do the climate transition, they need to have to recover, to economic and social recover strategy. Universities, they need the money to go ahead with the research programs and so on. The European money for these programs and for the European answer is on the table, because it's needed, and is needed for all the citizens, including Hungarian and Polish citizens. So I wish that the problem will be solved as soon as possible. I prefer to have an answer inside the budget, But if it's not possible, I can understand that the member states must find a legal base to create, in a legal way, this fund and this European answer.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mrs. Marques. In this period, of course, with new challenges, we need people with responsibilities assumed and with a strong experience. You yourself are representing such a good case, as you assumed in the past important responsibilities as minister in the government, or as a member of the parliament, or representing the European Commission in Portugal, if I remember well. So it's very important to have strong personalities with a strong background, not only political but also professional, to defend the things that the citizens are expecting to receive from our union. Thank you so much for your intervention. And now we are going towards the Romanian leader of S&D Group. Bună ziua, domnule Nica, sper că ne auziți. Sunteți liderul delegației României în grupul...
Nica, I hope you can hear us. You are the Romanian S&D leader and you are actively involved in this negotiation process. I remember that while Romania held the presidency of the Council of Europe, there were negotiations on the multi-annual budget, and you were among the key persons in the EU Parliament. Back then, we could meet face to face. Unfortunately, we are now left with only this instrument of communication, which helps us communicate to our citizens what happens there. Mrs. Marquez, we've heard from her. She did mention you as a very strong negotiator in big European files. Hello, Mr. Carbonaru. I want to greet you because I know you are both an observer and a partner of the European efforts, both in Bucharest and Brussels. I want to thank Mr. Negrescu and Mrs. Marques, my colleague, the one who has been fighting relentlessly during these negotiations. She's a co-rapporteur of the European Parliament for the multi-annual financial framework, and she succeeded for the first time to get 15 billion euro a top up. It has never happened before, and I want to thank her. And for I asked her if she can to get some top up money for two programs. One of them, the fair transition, which is very important for Romania, I would say crucial, because without the money for this transition, we will not be able to have the energy transition. And for Horizon Europe, I will tell you now a few words about this. Parliament got this European money for health, and here we have the EU for health,
4 miliarde, dar de asemenea un alt program care e
another
foarte
4
important.
billion, but another program important for me is Erasmus, plus 2 billion euro. Erasmus is very important for universities, for scholarships and exchanges of experience.
Mai
I
întâi.
will talk now about health.
Pentru cercetare, sigur, eu sunt raportor
For research, well, I'm a rapporteur for the EU research program for 2021-2027. We obtained some very important things. They are well known in Romania. First of all, a wage balance and significant increase in wages for people working with European funds, regardless whether they are employed by universities or companies who benefit from research funds. And for the first time, 3% of the Horizon Europe budget, which is almost 90 billion euros, so this means almost 3 billion euros for the widening part. This was not very well understood in Romania as well. People were saying, why are you begging for money? No, we are talking about equal access when you are in a competition where The competitors have a long tradition, they are well known. Usually, the project evaluators are from the EU 15 countries, the most developed countries. So sometimes you don't have the chance to be listened to in research. So the widening money is destined for countries which, just like Romania, need a voice and need to be protected in this competition. To have it would be unfair competition for us to compete with Oxford or the University in Sorbonne. And so this amount would allow Romania to benefit from the necessary funds for research, and I expect it to be a success. And second part, pandemic. So far, people, when they hear research, say, yeah, well, these are money, they are not so very helpful. It, we had to see the pandemic to see the importance of money allocation at the right place, at the right time, to enable us to successfully identify a treatment for COVID-19. You see the suffering and loss of lives just because we did not have available the necessary resources from the very beginning. Amounts from the research programs were allocated so that medical research companies would be able to develop a vaccine. So far, we have two companies announcing a vaccine with more than 90% efficiency, even more than 95%. And very important, the amounts available from the research program allowed them to accelerate, to move at top speed to make this vaccine available for European citizens, and not only. Now, what do we know? The two vaccines will be available probably in December, if approved by the European Drug Agency. Good news. But the bad news for us in the country is that the European Commission concluded contracts with 5 companies, and probably the first vaccines will come to Romania. But we need infrastructure, which means storage and handling minus 20 degrees. We need the vaccine can be administered in a very limited period of time. So this could lead to a very strange situation. The vaccine is flying in at the right temperature, minus 80, and when it gets to Romania, what happens? This is not uh, I'm talking now about the biotech and Pfizer vaccine. This is not easily handled, it's not easily administered. I understand that not even the general practitioners will be able to do this, and this is important because the money will have to be rightfully allocated, and the vaccine procedures need to
de vaccinare a 1 milioane de persoane. Ceea ce pentru
Belgium has a program to vaccinate 8 million people. So we need in Romania a program to vaccinate 16 million people now. And this is important because any intervention in the field of research, as it was mentioned in the beginning by Mrs. Marques, this means money for our health and economic recovery. For economic recovery, what we obtained, I'd like to mention that the money is not just given. In general, there must be mature public investment. Uh, we need to promote private investment, reforms, public infrastructure, transport, clean energy, environmental infrastructure, digital services. The thing is that the EU money are granted precisely for such purposes. Now about the transition fund, because we wanted a bigger amount. Unfortunately, Romania did not have a strong enough voice in the council, and this program, the amount allocated for this program was reduced dramatically. Although without such money, Romania cannot transition to a less polluting infrastructure and transport. But we need to start immediately because the amount given Romania could have 1.95 billion euros of, but 1.11 are for 2021 and 2022. So the plan should start immediately in Romania so that we can benefit from the money. Romania, for example, we have the Galați plan, and we need to plan 200 million euro because this is a priority project of the European Clean Steel. And this is a well-known thing. And now, together with Mrs. Marques, I want to say that we need to prepare national plans for this fair transition. We need the plans now according to the criteria in place. Any other plan or criteria cannot benefit from funding. Even worse, the plans can be rejected and the money will not be allocated. Thank you for allowing me to mention my opinion.
Pentru că ați trasat deja
Thank you very much for showing us some concrete examples of what Romania can do or what Romania can lose. It can miss opportunities. You mentioned research in the health sector. That is so needed, and the role of the European Commission was very active in pre-contracting millions of vaccine doses that will get to all European countries. I hope Romania will benefit from them in due time. And I am thinking about our Romanian research field, like Santa Cusino Institute that needs European funding. And you gave the example of the steel plant in Galați, an active plant in Romania's industry that could benefit from impressive amounts of money. So Romania can generate from its own resources technological upgrade towards a greener future, a greener Europe that is also in our benefit. So you also have relevant experience in the EU Parliament, and you've mentioned the swift rhythm Romania needs to move at. Are you in dialogue with the authorities at Bucharest, with the Romanian politicians, because it is important for the government to keep in touch with the members of the European Parliament. But the Commission, asked us, did you have national consultation rounds? Did you discuss with relevant public actors like town halls and city councils and county councils? If they are not part of the dialogue, how can we put into practice these actions? And parliamentary associations and NGOs, we need to have expenses for tackling climate change. 37% of the expenditure needs to be related to climate change, and around 20% to digital changes. If this won't happen, we can't access the funds. I told you that I have been speaking about the necessity to have regional centers like Germany. Germany has centers to preserve the vaccine at -80 degrees Celsius. Maybe you don't want that kind of vaccine, and you want the other one, but all countries are focusing on both types of vaccines because for one, maybe one vaccine is more efficient for the youngsters, the other one for the elderly. So everybody, all countries keep all their opportunities and focus on all vaccines available. But we didn't even start tender for the containers to keep the vaccines, and we'll get to a point in which all countries have their containers bought and Romania not. Oh, I need to speak out about these things because I am the SND representative at the EU Parliament, but I can't tell the politicians we sent you the vaccine as in Romania, but you don't have the means to keep them or transport them or give them to people. Our citizens need to have this opportunity and need these vaccines. These vaccines need to reach the people. This is my purpose, and this is also part of my purpose for economic development. Thank you, Mr. Dannica, the representative of the SND group in the European Parliament. And now we are going to present to you the survey that analyzed the impact on Romania and identifying the development opportunities. And together with us, we have here Mr. Radu Magdin. It's my pleasure to welcome him. He is the coordinator of this survey. Can you hear me? Yes. Good morning. You have the floor. Thank you. Because time is pressing and because we need to be interactive, I will tell you that the presentation and the survey will be available via Mr. Negrescu and Calea Europeană. So please subscribe to his social media channels, and we will share the materials there. And because we don't have too much time on our hands, I'll be as brief as possible and to the point as possible. And I want to thank the S&D group and Mr. Negrescu for mentioning this survey. I am the communicator of the team, and I will focus on the added value and comparative advantage. So the added value of this survey, we have expertise in financial matters, but we also have macro strategic expertise, and the way in which these reforms and the EU recovery fund is a permanent campaign to make EU policies more humane and more grounded, and focusing on a more pro-European Romania. I want to present to you some overall elements, and at the end I will focus on Romania because at the end of the day this is our main focus and our audience is mainly Romanian. This is why I'm speaking in Romanian and not in English. I will present to you a set of slides. I prepared around 15, and I will tell you the following. It's no secret that we have twofold crisis, health crisis and economic crisis. But we've seen strong political mobilization. I wouldn't want to intervene. Could you please share screen the slides while you are presenting? Because a visual support might be helpful.
Am aici host participant screen sharing, dar cred că via host putem
I think via host we can share, or I can put the document in the chat of this conference.
Ok, cred că acum...
Acum văd că merge cu screen sharing.
posibil, da?
Perfect,
Ok,
perfect,
vă
perfect,
rog.
perfect, perfect.
Ok,
Se vede,
e în ordine?
da?
Perfect, mulțumim.
Mulțumesc mult de tot. Perfect. Deci, la capitolul remarci introductive, a spune faptul că nu mai este un secret de mult faptul
No
că
secret that right now we are facing a crisis, both a health crisis and an economic crisis. Yes, we will recover, but the European Commission foresees a recovery around the year 2022. That being said, the European leaders understood the historical momentum and took action. So I want to congratulate everybody for understanding the need to move on and to recover from this crisis. There were scandals here and there, and the EU has been split into two parties, but everybody understood the necessity to act now. And we have a recovery package that will be ready in 2021. And as Mrs. Marques and Mr. Han mentioned, there was a meeting on the 10th of November. The health element, the climate element, youth and culture were all in focus. So the social dimension was in focus because basically everybody said 80 billion for Romania. Wow, so much money. But besides that, when this was communicated and the elements related to recovery actions were mentioned, according to the President of Romania, this national component and the national plan for recovery will be presented. So our side also did its homework. So the scope, the purpose of these 672.5 billion euros was to mitigate the crisis and the effects of the crisis. The previous crisis also had winners. Maybe this one will have winners as well. Populism was on the rise due to the past crisis, but this amount of money and this set of ambitions shows that EU wants peace and financial recovery and economic recovery. But besides amounts of money, you need a roadmap, a national roadmap. And Mrs. Marques mentioned this special instrument, reforms and investments that need to be made in the following years, and we need to attract money. You won't be able to renegotiate in the future, so our efficacy and efficiency matters. This is why a roadmap matters, and the specific recommendations of the EU, which are friendly and lack political party color, they are to our advantage because Romania will no longer be part of the countries with vulnerability, so we will not have a defensive stand from now on. We need to obtain this amount of money that is a victory for our country and invest them well. The European, national, and local link is also important. Therefore, we should pay attention to climate changes and green sectors, and elements of economic competitivity need to be in focus, and also education. And why am I emphasizing this? Why are these issues fundamental for us and for the EU? Because we are speaking about world competition and competition between great powers. And we are speaking about economic competition, and Asian century. This century was named Asian century.
Capitală este cât de competitivi suntem și noi trebuie să înțelegem că noi în Europa îmbătrânim. Totodată, în România, o temă redevine periodic pe masa.
In Romania, there is a recurrent topic for politicians, and not only for anyone who cares about the future of our country, the level of illiteracy, despite slogans assumed by our country in electoral context. So education is important. It was a pleasure for us to look at the S&D work because we see passion and perspective. So beyond slogans, education matters. We are getting older. We are speaking of automation, but let's not forget that in many regions in Romania, you can't simply say, well, robots are here. But at the end of the day, if we have layoffs, people cannot survive. We are champions. They are not happy that we are in a top position in terms of automation. We need education, we need consultation, we need discussions for modernization at all levels. I could say that in Romania, we understand this. We are there at discourse level, but we need digitization. And I'm saying this as an analyst. We've heard a lot about digitization in COVID. Well, we keep hearing about things, health, governance, talk about agri-tech or fintech, we talk about and techs, but the challenge for us is the funding and implementation and beyond slogans. In the forthcoming period, we need to be very careful with the money because we have very high expectations from the European recovery plan, and if we can't attract the money, we might have a backlash, undeserved backlash position towards the EU. Let's do our work because we are active and influential in Brussels. I see cross-party respect in Romania. There are people who have huge influence in Brussels. So let's get together and let's assume I say step towards this successful transition to the future. If we speak about strategic communication, the EU, just like many other global goals, used COVID to do its job before the crisis, and Calea Europeană often spoke consistently on the topic. The European Union has talked about the Green Deal, but what did they do beyond this initial COVID shock? They did a framing. So the Green Deal was restarted as green recovery. So we see this component of economic transition, but we need uh, we we have presented ourselves as regional energy champions, but we should not forget that we are champions in terms of classical energy. Our goal is to re-technologize, attract the money, and have as little social drama as possible. Our dream is a good, modern factory with people with decent wages, and this is also a pan-European social democratic dream with good economical conditions, with engagement, community engagement, and sustainable development. I haven't seen too much footprint at an interministerial level, and I encourage this. Thank you for your patience. I tried to be brief, and I will be available. I want to thank the organizers through social media, we will make
Mulțumesc și
available.
eu foarte mult, Radu Magdin. O
Thank you
să
very much,
te
Radu
rog să
Martin.
dai stop share ecranului
Stop.
tău pentru
Share
a
your
reveni în
screen,
formatul
please.
de
We want to
dezbatere.
get back to the
Mai rar de găsit și nu mă refer acum doar la
so
România, când
difficult,
cineva o
not
găsește
only in
atât de
Romania, but in
reflectată
Europe to
și are
find such a
atitudine
good
naționalist și
combination between
entuziasm în a susține valorile și principiile
rationality
europene
and
mai departe decât a
enthusiasm in the
comportamentul
analysis and in the support of
și
European
coordonatorul acestui
principles.
raport,
I'm talking about
domnul Radu Magdin,
the coordinator of
și
the report,
îi
Mr.
mulțumesc încă o dată pentru
Radu Magdin.
contribuțiile
I
domniei
want to
sale
thank
la
him
consistența
for his
conferinței noastre de
contribution
astăzi.
to the
De asemenea,
content of
retrag
our
aprecierile
conference today. I
referite
also
și
want to thank
în
you
numele colegilor
for
de la
your
Calea Europeană le voi
appreciation.
privi
And
cu
on
modestie și
behalf
cu
of my
responsabilitate
colleagues,
totodată.
I take them
Revenim
with
acum
all
la
modesty and
organizatorul acestei
responsibility.
conferințe, domnul
Getting
Victor
back to the
Negrescu,
organizer of our
așa cum
conference,
spuneam și cum este
Victor
deja recunoscut
Negrescu.
în țară și
He is already
în lume.
known in Romania
S-a
and
calificat
in
foarte
the
mult
EU as a very
promovarea
active
valorilor
person
europene
in
și în
promoting the
încercarea de a
European
translata
values and in the
aceste
attempt to
inclusiv în
transpose
România,
the
o țară
EU
care are
benefits,
atâta nevoie de a
especially
recupera
in
capacitatea
Romania, who
de
needs
dezvoltare, nu doar economică, dar și de
such benefits
mentalități.
so
Așa că
much
eu,
to
cu această
cover
nouă,
the
scurtă introducere,
economic
o să vă invit
flags,
să luați
but
cuvântul
not only
domnului
economic,
Negrescu,
also mentality
comentând
flags.
poate și acest
I will
studiu
now
care
pass the
ne
floor to
vizează
Mr. Negrescu. I
rezumatul mai
invite you
prezentat
to
în ultimele
comment the
minute.
study briefly presented by Radu Martin. Hello again, and thank you, Radu, for the very detailed presentation of this study. We wanted this study to present very clear ideas how we should approach this European funding, because, as I said, for quite a while, the European money was quite a mirage. We were told we are going to get 80 billion euro without being told how to spend it. As you heard earlier, Mrs. Marquez explained the complexity of negotiations in Brussels. Mr. Misa explained the national and European dimensions, and I'm sure that together with Advantage and will have very clear approaches as well. I wanted wider intervention at the end to point out some potential about the European budget and national priorities. As I said earlier, we are talking about almost 80 billion euro allocated on paper to Romania. So we have huge potential, but this needs to be capitalized on by Romania in a coherent manner. And here I want to say that my recent appeal to national governments of how the European resources will be spent should not be the decision of one government or one political party. It should be the result of a wide debate organized by the civil society, social partners, trade unions, citizens, other political parties, because it's a program to be implemented for at least the next 7 years. Moreover, we need such consensus to attract European funds as soon as possible, because we need to mention this. We will have a very brief period of time to access the funding available under the recovery plan. In principle, we are talking about 3 years. We are negotiating for 4 years, but in the first 2 years, we need to access 70% of about 30 billion euro allocated to Romania, and we need to do it fast. The European budget, if we look at every axis, and I have here a table in front of me for rural development program, for example, the bulk of the amounts for Romania should be spent in the first years of the European program. So we need to be prepared. And here there is a recommendation mentioned in the study we heard about earlier. I'm very fond of it. In public institutions, in the European funds, which should work effectively on these programs to be implemented, a special team of professionals from all ministries, because you need expertise in different fields. They need to have good wages, they need to be paid by results, and they need to have decision-making power. And the list of people should be public, and their activity should be public as well, all the time. We need to have we need transparency in the spending of European public money. But getting back to the initial stage, and I know that Roxana, Adrian, Radu think the same. Romania got 80 billion euro. We could have obtained more. Initially, we were talking about 85 billion euro. We have official data, official statements about such 85 billion euro. So there was a cut, but it is an important amount. We have cuts from the cohesion policy. From 30, we only got 26 billion euro. Out of the 33 billion euro for the recovery plan, an important amount is in grants or loans, and some of the amount will be reimbursed by member states, including Romania, and some will be own resources from European taxes. Already have an agreement on an implementation plan for European taxes on pollution. So we need to invest and reduce pollution, reduce our environmental footprint, and on the digital area, we need to see whether there will be a global agreement or Europe will make the decision. And here we need to be very accurate and very clear to present people the pluses and minuses very transparently, because unfortunately, as a country, we are very happy to get the money, but we forget to negotiate the funding period, the co-financing, any extension of implementation. So, and such contributions or taxes. So we need to place in perspective other countries. For example, Poland gets 174 million euro. Italy has 9 billion euro with the recovery plan. Greece, just like us. So there are countries which had pure funds or cuts in their contribution or exemptions from the contribution to the European budget. Denmark, for example, Germany, the Netherlands, Austria, Sweden. So exemptions from the contribution they had to the European budget. There are countries which earned or gained very much. There are countries with special allocations negotiated with the European Council, the Czech Republic, Slovenia, Belgium, Cyprus, Finland. So Romania is not mentioned in the conclusions of the European Council, which are presented as a great success success in Romania. We need to be very precise and know the starting point. The Netherlands got an increase in the percentage of community customs tax by 20%, 25%. Romania will probably also benefit from from such increase, but we could have negotiated a similar increase. But we do have a plan with clear action lines with important funding. We are talking about 1.8 trillion euro allocated at European level, with a significant amount for Romania, obviously, the European Parliament and the Social and Democratic Group wanted more. In Italy, we were talking about 2 trillion euro, as mentioned by the President of the Commission. These are important amounts. Mr. Marques negotiated, had a tremendous work and managed to get financial increases held. The budget was triple compared to the initial proposal by member states. So increases in education, in research and development, as Mr. Novak said, we did reach the target we proposed initially, but we've seen increases in culture, in infrastructure. We are looking for better formulas. This economic recovery plan includes different instruments available. We have the instrument SURE created by Mr. Schmidt at the initiative of Mr. Schmidt, which enables furlough subsidies. This is accessed by all member states. We did not create this mechanism. It is an European mechanism, and Romania benefits from important resources for this to have the resilience facility, the recovery and resilience facility with the allocations for Romania. We have, we are talking about 13 euro. We are also talking about environmental funding, just transition funds. Some of the money comes from this recovery plan. We are talking about 800 million, 1 billion the recovery plan, 800 million from the traditional budget. So it's clear lines at European level. Recently, the European Parliament approved the recovery and resilience plan, and about 40% of the amounts should go to environment, including here biodiversity, 20% for digitalization of public infrastructure and development of digital skills. We have at least 7% for the six European priorities: green transition, digitization, competitiveness, social and territorial cohesion, and for the next generations, and the recommendation reduced after amendments, 10% for education, 10% for culture and creative sectors. We need such amounts. We have transfer objectives for environment and gender equality. We need to introduce them. Unfortunately, I have to tell you that what we've seen publicly so far does not match data recommended by the European institutions. At some point, we've seen options, but the plan is lagging behind, and this is unfortunate. And here I draw attention on the need to comply with the recommendations of the European institutions and of the European Parliament.
European, posibilă extinderea planului de relansare de la 3 la 4 ani, creșterea cofinanțării, dublarea cofinanțării.
Rising the co-financing and doubling the pre-financing instrument, and increasing the EU contribution for European projects, and using money from the cohesion fund for the economic relaunch and recovery. Besides the special team, we also have another set of recommendations, consensus, and respecting the EU recommendations not to have redundant projects, and we want to limit the possibility to access EU funds if we have already done that, because money from the EU budget needs to be accessed in the first period of the 2021-2027. Because in the first year we need to access 1.1 billion euros in the first year and 900 million euros each and every subsequent year. So we need to have functional ADRs. We have a program to access money for digitalization, and we need a transparent list of projects for health programs. Everything needs to be transparently presented. We need clear-cut projects to be rolled out as soon as possible in order to access these resources. And this includes the loans granted to Romania, because we have no public information showing us how Romania can access that in a very short period of time. So in order to have a recovery from this economic crisis, we need to use this European funding not on paper, but through real projects. And we need a coherent approach, and everything should be accounted for. Everything needs to be as a result of a public consultation. Today's debate is an invitation to dialogue for the social partners and for civil society, addressed by our political group, because we are trying to open the debate around this national recovery plan. I am open to discussions with all political parties. And this is a very clear message, because this project is the result of the involvement of our group. This is why we need to take the European model and implement it at a national level. I remain open to dialogue. This is the last opportunity for EU funding, because as of 2028, Romania won't have access to such European funds and such amounts. We want to have a sustainable development with positive social impact, and for that we need to get involved and to create a platform for dialogue, because it's about building for Romania in a European context. This is what it is all about. Thank you for your comment, and thank you for the messages you conveyed, because 80 billion is not a neglectable amount, and it's not a check written in white that Romania just needs to cash. The experts of the European Commission tell us that it's all about vision when you draft projects and national plans to spend European money. And it's all about timing, because you need to respect the milestones and observe the timing imposed. It is said that it's the first time Romania has already prepared programs for this European funding. This means that in the near future, that plan will be publicly presented. Yes, we are all waiting for that plan, because it has been announced in the summer. Part of the chapters were already drafted. No project can be implemented the next day. We need to step out of the vicious circle of the political party owning the plan. And the message conveyed by Mrs. Marquez was very important. We are a team there. The states are negotiating as a team in the name of their citizens. Thank you very much. And now I want to give the floor to Mrs. Roxana Mînzatu. I am convinced she will contribute to our conference to strike gender balance as well, but also to present her important viewpoint, because she has led the Ministry for European funds, so she has expertise in accessing European money. If you are prepared, we invite you to take the floor.
Bună ziua tuturor! Mulțumesc mult pentru invitație, Victor Negrescu. Felicitări pentru inițiativă. Mulțumesc Calea Europeană, care, iată, se dovedește a fi acea platformă care încet construiește un dialog public pe tema pregătirii fondurilor europene post-2020. E important. Aș vrea să nu fiți singuri în acest demers, dar vă mulțumim pentru efort. Mulțumesc și tuturor vorbitorilor de la fiecare. Cred că putem pleca cu câteva mesaje foarte utile. Doamna Marquez despre cum se bat Parlamentul European pentru o instituția cea mai reprezentativă și cea mai legitimă la nivel european pentru resursele acestea financiare de care avem atâta nevoie. Apreciez mesajul dat și de comisarul Han și de remarca aceea despre colaborarea transpartinică, care, v-am mai spus, este esențială pe pregătirea finanțărilor europene. Aș vrea să spun că, aparent, în România nu reușim să avem acest dialog transpartinic și acum ar fi mai mult decât oricând necesar, deși în Parlamentul României, pentru că sunt deputat, nicio inițiativă, ordonanță de urgență sau proiect de lege care vizează domeniul fondurilor europene nu a fost vreodată subiect de dispută, de populism, subiect de dezbateri care, să spunem așa, care să depășească efectiv calitatea conținutului propunerii legislative. Deci am avut o astfel de abordare transpartinică în legiferare, dar este extrem de tăcută și poate nu s-a văzut, dar altfel aș aștepta, mai ales în această etapă din partea Guvernului, o abordare mult mai deschisă pe tema pregătirii acestor programe. Mă bucur și m-am bucurat să le aud și pe domnul ministru și europarlamentar Mica și ale cărui, mă rog, contribuțiile le cunoaștem, mai ales pe zona sprijinirii cercetării. Este important ceea ce ne-a spus. Eu am să încerc să vă spun așa, poate că lumea spune că eu sunt fost ministru, deputat, în realitate lucrez din 2004 în domeniul acesta al fondurilor europene și mare parte din timp am fost fie consultant, fie expert, fie am implementat în ONG-uri finanțări europene și oamenii, poate dincolo de astfel de dezbateri, când mi se adresează în termeni mult mai concreți. Ei urmăresc poate mesajele politicienilor ale noastre, astfel de dezbateri și aud sumele, aud că sunt zeci de miliarde de euro. După aceea aud că banii sunt gata la 1 ianuarie 2021. Cu asta rămân oamenii, poate mai prind, eu știu, câteva elemente legate de faptul că trebuie să-i cheltuim repede și sigur ei nu au posibilitatea să dialogueze cu cei care dau și dăm aceste mesaje repetate în spațiul public, nici la Bruxelles, nici în București. Poate apucă să stea de vorbă cu cineva ca mine, care a lucrat cumva și pe teren în domeniul fondurilor europene, poate și cineva ca Victor, dar vin concret și spun, ok, care sunt liniile de finanțare, de când putem să depunem proiecte, care sunt sumele, pentru că am auzit că sunt 80 de miliarde de euro care de la 1 ianuarie sunt gata. Și aici cumva trebuie să avem grijă să gestionăm acest proces pentru a fi credibil, pentru că aici, până la urmă, și conceptul acesta de ajutor financiar de la Uniunea Europeană câștigă sau pierde credibilitate. Și aici aș spune în primul rând că trebuie să explicăm foarte clar oamenilor cum vin acești bani, cine se ocupă de ei, când vin acești bani
when
nu doar
the money
cât este
is to
suma, pentru
arrive,
că asta
not
este cel mai
only
simplu. Că
the
putem spune
amount.
într-adevăr că
The
față de
amount
propunerile
is
inițiale din
easy to
2018,
mention,
România a mai pierdut la politica de coeziune vreo
but
4 miliarde
Romania
de euro,
lost
dar
4
ce am avut și
billion
ce am pierdut,
euros
ideea
at
este
the
când vom putea
cohesion
beneficia de
policy.
acești bani. Și aici aș
The question
aștepta
is,
și
when can
propun
we
guvernului
benefit
actual
from
și
the
cred că
money?
orice guvern va veni
And
după
I
6 decembrie.
want to
În primul
propose
rând,
to
ca atât
the
pe resursele
government,
financiare
the
din
incumbent
politica de
government
coeziune,
and the
politica
future
agricolă
government
comună,
that
dar și pe
they
suma
should
aceasta de
focus
30,4
on
miliarde de euro care vine pe
30.4
mecanismul de
billion
redresare și
euros on
reziliență,
the
să le
recovery
dăm
and
oamenilor un
resilience
timeline, un
facility,
grafic în timp estimativ, puțină
to
predictibilitate,
have
că
a
ei vor înțelege
deadline
și să le spunem că în 2021 și 2022
predictability
vom lansa linii de
horizon.
finanțare din
We should mention that in
probabil tot
2021,
programele curente
2022 we will launch
2014-2020,
financing
din unele programe din
lines
2021-2027
for
și
this
ce vom
set
face
of
cu mecanismul de
programs.
redresare și
And
reziliență, pentru că mecanismul
what
de
about
redresare și
the
reziliență
recovery
în
and
România poate
resilience
fi
mechanism
la
in
momentul de față
Romania
documentat
right now?
strict
It can
pe
be
o ordonanță de urgență dată de
documented
guvern în
on
această vară,
the
ordonanța
emergency
155 pe 2020.
emergency
Recent am văzut
ordinance
Ministerul
adopted
Fondurilor
by
Europene
the
că a mai
government.
completat cu o propunere de ordonanță care să
And
modifice
there is
această lege,
another
în care
proposal
cine
for
vrea să
another
citească
ordinance to
poate să
amend
ghicească
the law.
încotro se duce abordarea
People
guvernului
reading
actual
that
pentru a folosi
might
aceste 30 de
guess
miliarde pe redresare și reziliență.
the
Dar în această
direction
ordonanță se
of
vorbește strict de
the
pregătirea proiectelor de investiții publice, deci nu și de banii care se vor duce către mediul privat. Se vorbește despre
facility,
unele
but in the
domenii
law,
către care s-ar duce pregătirea acestor
the
proiecte.
fields,
Este corect să
some
face
fields are
vorbire despre
mentioned,
folosirea resurselor din
and
asistență
the
tehnică
use
pentru
of
elaborarea
technical
documentațiilor
assistance
tehnico-economice,
resources
pentru că
are mentioned.
trebuie să înțelegem că
But we
fondurile
need to understand
europene
that
pentru proiectele
European
publice se
funds
accesează
for
pe
public
baza
projects
studiilor de
are to be
fezabilitate,
accessed
avizelor,
based on
autorizațiilor de
feasibility
construcție,
studies
care în unele
and
cazuri,
other
pentru unele
permits,
investiții poate există, dar în cele mai
permits
multe
and so on
cazuri
and
vor
so
trebui elaborate.
forth.
Și eu vă spun foarte clar că
These
pe mecanismul de
documents to be
redresare și
elaborated
reziliență,
and
majoritatea proiectelor
the
publice astăzi sunt în
recovery
fază de
and
idee, prea
resilience
puține.
mechanism.
Uite, poate eu am un exemplu de la Brașov, Spitalul Regional
And
de la
I will
Brașov are un
take
studiu de
the
fezabilitate
example
aproape
of
gata făcut de
the
BERT și știu că se dorește
regional
depunerea lui
hospital
pe
in
finanțarea aceasta pe redresare și
Brașov
reziliență, dar
that
prea puține
has
proiecte se vor vedea în următorii 2
the
ani în mod
feasibility
concret
study
și palpabil și oamenii trebuie să
completed,
știe asta, că
and
noi
they
avem un
want to
termen de 2 ani de
access
zile
funds.
pentru
We
a
have a deadline.
aduce proiectele la nivelul
We
de
have a
contract
period
de
of
lucrări,
2
contract de
years,
furnizări, servicii, pe
in
componenta de
which
granturi din
we
redresare și reziliență.
should
Componenta de
bring
granturi din cele 30 de miliarde este de
project
undeva
on the grant
13,5
component,
miliarde de euro.
which
Mare
is
parte este componentă de împrumuturi.
13.5
Dar oamenii
billion
trebuie să aibă această
euros.
informație de la
People
guvern, da?
need
Deci trebuie să
this
știe
set of
exact
information
ce
from
vom
the
face în
government,
fiecare an din
and
fiecare
they
resursă
need to know what
financiară.
they should
Apoi, dacă
do
ne întoarcem din
each
cele
and
80
every
de
year
miliarde de
with
euro
the
la
financial
cele
resources they
26,8
have.
miliarde de euro pe
So
politica de coeziune.
26.8
Oamenii
billion euros
nu știu
on
în ce
the
măsură
cohesion
nu
policy.
avem informația asta în spațiu
We don't
public. Trebuie
have
să se
this
uite peste
information in the
propunerile de
public
programe
space.
operaționale, o
People
parte
need
începută
to
într-adevăr din guvernare, adică a făcut și
analyze
o
the
parte.
operational
Sunt 16
programs.
propuneri de programe
There are
operaționale, 8 sunt
16
propuneri de programe
proposals for operational
regionale.
programs.
Am
8
descentralizat și cred
for
că asta este o
regional
soluție în
projects.
general.
So
Decizia
we
privind
managed to decentralize
alocarea
and the
fondurilor
decision
europene și
related
monitorizarea
to
fondurilor
the
europene pe proiecte
allotment
către
and
aceste agenții
monitoring
de
of
dezvoltare
EU
regională.
funding
Nu va fi
is in
toată
the
presiunea
hands of
utilizării
regional
fondurilor europene
agencies
doar pe
right now.
ADR-uri, să nu înțelegem
So
greșit. Ministerele continuă să aibă un rol
the
extrem de important.
ministries
Dar
will
sunt niște
continue
pași
to play an
făcuți și văd că și
important
actualul
role,
guvern
but
continuă
some steps have been made, and
mute
the
foarte multă
government
responsabilitate în pregătirea proiectelor,
tries
inclusiv
to
cele pentru redresare și
shift the
reziliență, către
responsibility
ADR-uri.
towards
Dar trebuie să discutăm despre lucrurile astea, inclusiv politic, dar și public.
regional
Ok, ADR-urile, clar că mai mult decât a aloca finanțări, că vor gestiona, vor da fonduri nerambursabile din programele operaționale regionale, dobândesc un rol sporit. Iată, vor selecta ideile de proiect pentru care se va elabora documentația tehnico-economică, studiile de fezabilitate susținute de stat ca să acceseze mecanismul de redresare și reziliență. Sunt sigură că toți primarii, toate universitățile,
toate clusterele, toate consorțiile din zona academică și din zona mediului de afaceri doresc să aibă informația asta mult mai concret. Când depunem aceste idei de afaceri, putem primi sprijin, asistență tehnică ca să ne facem documentațiile. Care este graficul în timp, predictibilitatea și să știm să ne facem planurile pe următorii ani, care sunt sumele pe care le putem aștepta. Sigur, pot să ne răspundă actualii guvernanți că vor veni cu această primă variantă a Planului Național de Redresare și Reziliență. Săptămâna viitoare sau cum va fi, dânsii anunțaseră inițial că vor ieși cu planul în 15 octombrie. Așteptăm să vedem acest prim draft. Este evident că și trebuie să știe cei care ne ascultă. Toate aceste programe sunt propuse de guverne, dar după aceea intră într-o negociere cu Comisia Europeană, unde pot apărea mai mult sau mai puțin modificări și pe Planul Național de Redresare și Reziliență vor putea apărea elemente de feedback de la Comisie, dar pentru că urmăresc dezbaterile online făcute destul de discret, ca să nu spun altfel, pe programele operaționale aferente politicii de coeziune, cele 16 de care vă spuneam, cei care ne ascultă le pot vedea pe site-ul mf.gov.ro, le pot căuta acolo la secțiunea minister, sunt destul de bine ascunse, așa cum am spus. Mă uit la dezbateri și văd abordarea celor de la Ministerul Fondurilor Europene când prezintă aceste programe operaționale către stakeholder și le spun, trimiteți-ne propunerile dumneavoastră de îmbunătățire sau modificare repede, acum, dar să nu vă așteptați să rescriem tot programul. Ori asta dă cumva de înțeles că este o simulare, o mimare de consultare publică. Adică ăsta este materialul, vă convine bine, nu, hai să ne prefacem că l-am citit împreună și că am preluat propuneri. Ori nu este așa, pentru că de cele mai multe ori, iată, propunerea de a avea alocare pe educație, pe digitalizarea educației, o propunere substanțială din partea grupului SND, am văzut în studiul prezentat de domnul Magdin, 10 miliarde de euro. E important să ne uităm la, pentru că dacă te uiți pe această ordonanță 155 și vom vedea cum arăta propunerea guvernului, nu-ți dai seama dacă educația va fi cu adevărat și digitalizarea educației o prioritate. Eu sunt inițiatoarea legii 109, prin care, pe 2020, prin care am statuat că fiecare copil trebuie să primească laptop, tablete pentru acces la educație digitală. Victor are preocupări pe domeniul ăsta. Recomandările specifice de țară pe 2020 pentru România, din cele 4, una se referă la accesul la educație și digitalizarea educației. Iată un exemplu pe care, cum să zic, n-am vrea să-l vedem în Planul Național propus de guvern, cuprins cu niște valori și niște idei și să ni se spună dacă vă convine bine, dacă nu, nu ne-am consultat, asta este să mergem înainte. Nu așa abordăm în domeniu, trebuie să lucrăm constructiv și de manieră cooperând. Cam asta este perspectiva pe care cred că oamenii simpli, și când spun oameni simpli, mă refer încă o dată la cei care sunt beneficiari de fonduri, primari, consilii județene, companii, clustere, asocieri de companii, camere de comerț, entități care pot accesa fondurile pe zona de digitalizare, tot ce înseamnă infrastructura de broadband, centre de date, sistemele de cloud. Toți aceștia, până la urmă, au nevoie de un mecanism de consultare mult mai profund și mai transparent și de un grafic în timp, de un timeline foarte clar, ca să nu ne păcălim cu toții că din 2 ianuarie vom avea linii de finanțare pe mecanismul de redresare și reziliență și vom vedea efectiv investițiile în 2 ani de zile. Este vorba de un parcurs pe care îl avem. Ne-am dorit foarte tare să vedem și mi-aș dori să văd cumva, eu știu, o atmosferă de consultare chiar din momentul în care la Consiliul European 21 iulie s-a agreat această sumă de 80 de miliarde de euro, 79,9. Adică sunt câteva luni de zile în care chiar dacă înțeleg că experții Ministerului Fondurilor Europene sau cine lucrează la acest plan fac un efort să elaboreze acest document programatic și ne dăm seama că e complex, dar consultări publice, politice, care să arate până la urmă direcția în care dorim să ne îndreptăm cu această țară, trebuie făcută, pentru că, așa cum am mai spus-o, în următorii 10 ani, că vorbim despre fonduri care impactează cel puțin următorul deceniu, nu știm câte guverne și câte culori politice vor trece pe la Palatul Victoria. Ei trebuie să fie capabili să nu oprească proiectele pentru că n-au fost de acord la început cu conceptul, să le ducă înainte. Păi nu putem să ne asigurăm că nu vom pierde acest timp decât dacă acum reușim să facem această consultare la maniera cea mai reală și onestă pe fiecare program operațional, dar și pe programul național de redresare și reziliență.
That's my insight. Thank you very much for your argumentation based on your vast experience, and not only from political perspective. We need predictability. Without this, irrespective of the amount, without that, we won't be able to absorb the funds.
I would like to thank again to Mrs. Margarida Marquez, who had a very impressive presentation regarding the role of European Parliament in negotiating the MFF and the recovery funds. And as we have, unfortunately, I don't speak Portuguese, but I learned at school that the Romanian language and Portuguese language are strongly connected at their original roots. It would be very nice and interesting also for us, Mrs. Marques, if you would like to just shortly comment on the Portuguese experience in recovering, economically speaking, using European funds, and the importance of these funds, the way that are used in Portugal to deliver welfare to the people. Would you be so kind, please? Hello, Mrs. Marquez, can you hear us?
Că niște mici probleme de conexiune. Eu zic să mergem spre Adrian.
Da? Ok, mergem înainte și sperăm ca atunci când ajungem la concluzii să putem să revenim și la
we will get back to conclusions. Negotiator European
Roxana Mînzatu,
European funds, even former minister of European funds. At the end of our conference, I want to invite Mr. Adrian Cotu and from Canada to give us his opinion on this opportunity we have for next year. Hello, I hope everyone can. It's difficult to move from a very technical approach to a macro knowledge of Europe's situation and last Romanian situation. And I will highlight here a few aspects because I would like the Romanian and European members of the parliament think very, very clearly of what's next, because the crisis must be overcome with the instruments made available by the EU to the member states, but there are still many issues of an incomplete European Union. It would have been much easier for Europe in a crisis to have one union, tax union, currency union, legal union, because we keep talking about the rule of law, and obviously budgetary union, because we are going to start the debate on how each member state will have to build their budget so that they are able to finance the EU funds absorption made available through the various instruments approved recently by the European Parliament and by the Commission. Another important aspect which the European Union and all stakeholders look at macroeconomic imbalances. As you could see, yesterday the European Commission published the latest report on Europe, and we know there, at least in the first 2 years of pandemic management, together with the economic crisis, we see a huge increase of the state debt, and even the Next Generation EU relies on a mix of grants and loans, which, in my opinion, should be discussed more concretely because it's the way in which Europe member states will be able to manage the deficit and the public debt. And here I end the macro approach for the future of Europe because Europe should avoid a liquidity crisis in the future. It needs to provide concrete and full financial flows so that, and especially the manner in which, if you want, member states can be supported if they have problems in managing their public debt. At some point you mentioned Greece, or people mentioned Greece, which will receive almost the same amount as Romania, and Greece has almost 100% of the GDP public debt. They had this huge crisis due to lack of liquidity, and they had to wait for almost 10 years to recover. This is a much wider debate, which should be of concern in the future. The members of the parliament and the institutions involved need to look very carefully at what might happen in the future, because we are talking about a global market, and any imbalance will lead to chronic issues. In terms of the budget proposal, this is challenging, a huge challenge for member states, and a complete paradigm shift in my viewpoint, because absorption in the first years, here I'm not only talking about Romania, all member states in general had a lower absorption in the first 2 years because there was this lag or delay about the development caused by the development and approval of the operational programs, the implementation of the first steps under each program. And now the focus is on very high absorption in the first years. And here I believe there must be very good cooperation between the European Commission and the member states. We need more flexibility and less bureaucracy in the relationship between Brussels and the member states, because with this paradigm shift in the absorption, we need a different approach. Member states, we don't need to wait for the member states to submit projects, but Brussels should try and support member states so that the fund absorption and project submission should be expedited, because member states will be facing huge problems on the one hand in developing the program documents, the programming documents, and in adapting the program to the new realities. The current plan, for example, just a small example, 700 million euros for Next Generation EU. It's great it happens, but it takes in the new European lockdown will generate new economic loss. And then we need a bridge towards a new plan which should provide additional resources. Why am I saying that? Because flexibility in decision making and very good cooperation between the Commission, Parliament, and Council must be, well, this is T0 time. If the European Union manages to improve and expedite this institutional cooperation, good. If not, it will not be able to fully capitalize on the amounts made available. These are there are problems with the national plans. The national recovery and resilience plans, as you can see, are lagging behind. There are delays caused by this approval of the full financial program or plan, so that everybody knows what are the funds available, the conditionalities, and such delays would mean optimistically thinking April 2021, and I think we are going to reach June 2021 for the approval of such recovery plans. And here we have many elements which rely on differences in experience, in practices, thinking or mindset and know-how. We are talking about the capacity to adapt to novelty, because this health crisis is dynamic, is under development, and some vulnerability elements which we have always kept aside, thinking that they are not burning at the moment. Now we see them. They become obvious, and besides structural reforms the states must embrace in their recovery plans. They need to be very careful to foster the economy of member states. And here I see quite a wide vision to foster or to stimulate supply, but the EU is facing a chronic problem with the aggregated the demand, and there are very few program elements focusing on the purchasing power of the EU citizens on the one hand, and on the other hand, the increase in the consumption demand from entrepreneurs, from the intermediary economy. There must be much stronger exchange here, and obviously operational programs may provide partial solutions for such imbalances, but they're not sufficient. And my point is, I would see the Commission should be more flexible and give up certain elements from the tax pact. Well, they say it will be suspended in 2021 as well. In my opinion, it should be suspended until 2024, until the next generation EU will be implemented, because it will create imbalances, and it will cause imbalances with the budget deficits in member states and the public debt, and it will cause inflation. So these elements are crucial. On the other hand, the European Commission should focus in a flexible manner on that area where it can allow member states to remove certain expenditure from the budget, because we have global commitment as the NATO treaty, for example. We are talking about structural expenditure, which places pressure on the national budget. Romania is in a rather inflexible area because it has its own currency, and it depends on the euro guarantees, but the euro area is less flexible, and the European Commission needs to identify instruments to make them available to the member states, because the goal is to enable member states to absorb European money. Not only speak of macroeconomic imbalances, yes, there are, but you need to help member states find alternative solutions. I will not continue too much, but I will touch upon digitization because there is a huge focus on it right now. I believe we need to be very careful and stimulate, encourage providers, and this should become a real market. Well, there may be a very direct approach regarding the non-European providers, but we need to encourage this because we almost entered the digital revolution. So beyond the effects of the European digitization, which have very important economic and social impacts, and we need to design compensation measures, we need to think of the European specialists in technology. We need to keep them in Europe. We need to train them and upskill them. They need to be the people we rely on, because we are losing them. There will be a very fierce global competition in the next 10 years. And I would stop here because the time is quite limited. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation, which included an economic analysis on Europe, and thank you for your warnings and your focus on flexibility. European Commission should prove, and on this need of economic governance, which should accelerate. I think everything contributes to the wider framework of analysis on the impact of European funds, whether recovery or the annual funds. Thank you, Mr. I want to thank those who contributed to this conference. And now I'm thinking of Mrs. Mukesh, Mr. Dan Nika, Raju Magnin, Roxana Mînzatu, the Minister of Johannes Hahn, and the organizer of this conference. I will now pass the floor to Victor Negrescu for conclusions.
În primul rând, mulțumesc și eu
First of all, I want to thank all our guests who contributed to offering a complete dimension of the European budget and recovery plan. We have a national component, and the Commissioner said that we are now at the core of this problematic, and we are refining and tuning everything in order to offer adequate solutions to Europe. And Mrs. Marques mentioned the dimensions of the negotiations and pointed out various directions such as research, and Mrs. Mînzatu emphasized the technical elements that must be implemented in order for these ideas to be operational. And Adrian put everything in an economic context, because we cannot bring in European money without understanding where we should spend them. Spend it. And we also discussed about the survey we carried out. So we are coming with a survey, with an analysis, and we are launching an invitation to dialogue in order to carry out this process. We are expressing our availability to work for drafting the direction of our country. I want to thank Calea Europeană for their support, and my colleagues who also contributed to making the event today possible. Please share and like our event, and we will also publish that survey in order to emphasize the fact that we need serious involvement in this process. I want to thank everybody who contributed to today's debate. I would also thank our interpreters today who helped us communicate, and I want to thank the viewers who followed us on Facebook and who watched our conference. I want to thank you and wish you best of luck.